Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I am your Life Mastery Coach. I'm also author of this brand new book that you may have heard me talk about before. It's called A Life to Die For. It's available now on Amazon in both Kindle and print form. I really hope you'll head over there and pick up a copy because it's got some amazing stuff in it. And my new guest knows this because he has a copy for himself. But I'll share about that later. Anyway, today we're talking about a clear vision for 2020. That's what we're talking about. And everyone has dreams, right? I mean, dreaming can be a powerful personal motivator to really get you excited about the kind of world you truly want to live in. Problem is, as I see it, most dreams are not really accomplished by appropriate inspired actions. As a result, nothing happens and the dreams fade away into the dusty warehouses of memory. Now, if you've ever had a dream or a vision or something along that line that never seemed to come to anything real, you may have become demoralized or disillusioned about it. You may have found yourself stuck in the humdrum hamster wheel of the daily grind or other stuff like that. And maybe you wonder if your life will ever actually resemble what your heart truly desires. Well, my guest today helps people focus on growing their businesses, and he also works with high achievers with the idea of deep inner transformation. He specializes in helping people quickly uncover the deepest causes that hold them back from having the love, relationships, and business success that they want. He is the co-founder of the multi-million-dollar business coaching company, The Big Shift, and has personally coached and trained thousands of business owners to make a bigger difference in the world. My guest is Patrick Dominguez. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. And everybody, let's just breathe from the heart and say hello to this beautiful man.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And yeah, great to be here with you and everyone else who's watching right now.
Yeah. Look at that. Ed from Toronto. Welcome, Ed. Glad to see you're here. Thanks for checking in with us. So, Patrick, I think one of the things that you and I have talked about a lot of stuff over the years, and I don't know for sure how long I've known you, but I know it's been at least 3 or 4 years. And I think I met you through the Big Shift program, and I remember we've had some pretty deep conversations. And one of the things that I've learned about you that I resonate with is that you like to dig into the deep part of the psyche, into the shadows, shall we say. And I know that's one of my favorite topics as well. So I'm curious about how you got to that place of such curiosity and what is it about your own life that led you to that path?
Yeah, for a lot of my life, I felt like I was kind of living parallel lives where during the day I was working in a corporate environment. For most of my career, I worked as a marketing director for different companies until I came into coaching. And so I had a pretty straight-laced sort of day job, but in the evenings or on the weekends, I was a really avid pursuer of personal development and spirituality. And I think a lot of it was I had a lot of inner demons to work on. And so I was always reading a self-help book, always going to a workshop, going to a Dharma talk, just finding every avenue I could to just, deal with some of the inner pain and things going on inside. And it's kind of been a lifelong pursuit. And what I would say is after doing lots of different learning, like learning's always kind of been my specialty, as an Enneagram 5, we're big learners and we try to learn our way out of problems and out of suffering. Yeah. And finally, what I would say about 10 years ago, I started working with healers. And basically what I discovered was actually getting more hands-on and working with the stuff inside rather than just learning about it is what actually created the biggest difference for me.
Yeah, that's an amazing awareness. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think this idea of learning, and most of us, when we think of learning, we think of going to schools or we think of reading books or we think of, maybe joining a small group that talks about something in some detail. The problem with that is it's pretty kind of superficial. You're looking at things from the outside, which is good because it helps you to understand stuff, but you're not really looking at what's going on inside. And I think the other piece of it is many people, you and I being perhaps two exceptions, many people are terrified of the idea of going inside and looking at all that old dark stuff. I mean, you used the word demons in your share. And I think that's what people think of is they think, oh my God, these are horrible, evil demons, and I don't want to bring those to light. So they tend to be afraid of diving into that, even though what you and I have probably already discovered, and what other people I think will discover if they do this work is there's really nothing demonistic about any of it. It's all just stuff that we've hidden away. We pushed it into the shadow because we thought it was bad or we thought it was inappropriate. But once we uncover it again and bring some loving light to it and bring some healing to it, all of a sudden we begin to see the gifts and the beauty and the magnificence of that part of ourselves that we spend so much time and energy hiding. Is that your experience as well?
I totally agree. Yeah, that once you lift up the rock and see what's there, it's usually some hurt places, and it's kind of like, or, just a delicate little child underneath the rock that's just wanting to be loved, and there's really no dragons or demons down there.
Yeah.
I found for myself though, just in like felt like decades of just learning and always learning things. I felt like, hey, I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm passionate about this. But one of the things I discovered was it's, for me at least, it was kind of almost like a form of spiritual bypass. Just I'm always learning. I always have some new conceptual model, like, oh, Reverend, Michael Beckwith has this cool 4-step model around, spiritual ascension. And so I was always sharing these things with people and not really going to, the heart of where sort of the pain or the hurt lived inside and actually working with that. So that's much more of my focus these days when I'm working with clients who are feeling really stuck or paralyzed or procrastinating, which is let's get to the heart of it and let's leave behind like the theoretical models and just get to the deeper place. Because you've probably heard sayings like the only way out is through. And so I always like getting to the core of things with people and working from that place.
Well, first of all, I have a website of my own domain. In is the only way out. So yeah, I know that term. I've used it a lot myself, and I teach my clients exactly the same thing. But I want to just say I'm just so glad you mentioned this idea of spiritual bypass. I think that is a pretty serious problem in our world. Maybe there are some people who can actually ascend and go beyond all of the problems associated with the ego and the heart and the pain and suffering and so forth that most of us have to go through. But I think those people are pretty few and far between. And so for the most of us, even though we probably all to some degree or another want to, become enlightened and want to elevate ourselves and elevate our consciousness, sometimes we have to deal with the stuff that's here right now. So I'm sure glad you mentioned that. And I actually had an episode devoted specifically to that topic about spiritual bypass. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, when I was in college, I took a class in Buddhism, and that was kind of my first foray into the whole world of Buddhism and sort of Eastern philosophy and spirituality. And there was this beautiful metaphor that I learned. And it's interesting because I haven't been able to track it down since. I've searched for it on the internet. And so, I don't know, maybe it was just a mystical download. But I remember reading a metaphor of the 3 shrouds. And the idea was that inside of all of us, we have this Buddha nature. And this is a classic sort of Buddha nature within, right? Which I think of as kind of like our higher self or our true self. Yeah. And so in this metaphor of the 3 shrouds, it's not to look for that, sort of awakened aspect of ourselves through searching for it. It's already inside. However, it's covered with the 3 shrouds. And of course, these are the 3 shrouds of Buddhism, which are attachment, ignorance, and anger. Okay. And so the idea is when you can release the 3 shrouds, then the Buddha nature comes shining through. And I remember when I learned this thinking like, oh, what a beautiful metaphor. But what I've learned since that time is actually when you're able to, Amazon driver just dropped off a box here. When you're able to release what's there in those shrouds, then what comes through is that sort of bright, shining, inner, free nature. And so that's why I think it is worth looking at the inner stuff and releasing it, because it is an access way to the part of us that feels free, that feels lighter, that feels sort of organically joyful inside. We don't have to go cultivate it. It's already there, just waiting to be uncovered underneath, you know, the demons or the dark stuff or the pain that might be present.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I totally resonate with that. Since you can't find it as that metaphor on the internet, I mean, then it doesn't exist. Therefore, it must be yours. So go ahead and take full ownership of it. That's what I would do. Find a way of expressing this that resonates for you and just share it with the people and put your name on it. Then it belongs to you from this point forward. I mean, there is really nothing new under the sun anyway. We're all just sharing the same knowledge over and over again in different ways, in different perspectives. So your perspective might be really important for someone else to hear.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. So we wanted to kind of bring our focus back to this idea of vision and a vision for 2020 and beyond. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the key component to, or maybe there's a couple, more than one key component for creating a vision that really can motivate you and help you to, accelerate your growth and movement throughout the year? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, great question. So I want to back up and just provide a little context. So for the last 10 years, I've been, do more of their mission work in the world and make more money in their businesses and so forth. And so generally speaking, when I'm working with business owners and entrepreneurs, this time of the year right now in January is when people are starting to think about the new year, and they're setting goals, or they're establishing their vision for the year. They're establishing the direction. Where do they want to go in 2020? What do they want to create, right? How do they want their life to be? How do they want their business to be? So that's a space that a lot of people are in, right now. Today is January 15th, right? So that's a space hopefully a lot of people are in. And so I've coached a lot of people on, so what do you do to actually formulate a vision or goals for the new year? And so the first thing, David, is I think it's super valuable to set goals, right? You're setting a direction for the year. But what I like to do when I'm working with my people is, even before setting goals, there's sort of the goals of what you want to accomplish or how you want your business or life to be. But I like to back a step up and start with what I call more of like why goals, or a why vision, right? So before the tangible, I think it is super important at some point to get to the SMART goals, right? To have things be a little more tangible. But before getting to the SMART goals, I like to take a step back and think about the why. And so I like to ask people, and we can ask you, David, right now. We can ask people who are listening on this as well. When you think about 2020, what is it that matters the most to you? And at the end of this year, or at the beginning of next year, when you're looking back, what is it that, if you've accomplished, or if you've been had a certain way of being, or you've shown up in the world in a certain way, what is it that you would be so thrilled that things went that way in 2020? And so that's the place I like to start. And for myself as well, I just, excuse me, I just went through this myself. I just spent 3 weeks in Indonesia on vacation, which was amazing. And I did take the time while I was there to just tune into what matters the most for me in 2020. And so, I'd love to share a little bit of what I came up with my.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, first of all, it's a gift to be on vacation and have the time and space for this. So, I recommend for everybody, even if you're a busy entrepreneur or just someone leading a busy life, take part of a Saturday or part of a Sunday, get a journal out, go out to someplace where you're not going to be disturbed by other people, a quiet space, and just give yourself the time and space to just drop into it. Because oftentimes these things that really matter the most, don't come right away. It's helpful to just sit with that question for a little bit and just let things bubble up from within. And, to not always listen to the first things that come up, right? Because those might just be a little bit more reactive, but just have some quiet space for this. And so when I had the quiet
right here,
Yes, of
Something
course.
that I found helpful when I'm doing some writing of that type, I'll just put a question across the top of my page. What do I want for 2020, let's say? And then, like you say, I'll sit down and I'll start writing, but I'm going to write everything that comes to my mind. And so at first, there's a lot of superficial stuff that comes, and then I start thinking, all right, what else do I want? And I just keep going until I can't write anymore. And usually out of that, there will be some beautiful, gorgeous gem, something that is so important to me that I will realize, wow, this is what I should be focusing on. Just thought I'd offer that.
I love that. Yeah. I do something very similar, but for me, I run that a little more internally. So I might be like sitting under a tree with my journal and things are coming through. And then, just like you said, lots of noise or static that's just present in your system from, what's been present in life may come through. And then I wait for a deeper layer of wisdom or information to come through.
Right.
But yes, I
Well, I
love
mean,
this.
it doesn't really matter how you do it as long as you do it. And what I
Yes.
found for myself is if I don't write it down, then what happens is that thought keeps coming up. It's like
Yes.
I need to pay attention to it in order for it to pass through. And when I pay attention to it, I don't mean necessarily agreeing with it or anything like that. I'm just talking about being aware of it and saying, oh, yeah, I see that. Now I'm going to write it down. And now it just seems to move on like a cloud in the sky.
Love it. Yeah, it makes total sense. Uh, yeah, because different things will arise that want to be heard or listened to or seen, right? And
Yeah.
we can just let those come through as well. Yes. And so when I was doing this process of just contemplating the question, what matters the most to me in 2020, the first thing that came up for me was a theme for the year. And so this is something I've played with a lot in the last 10 years. And my business partner of the last 10 years, Bill Barron, and I used to start every year with what's our theme? And a theme is a one or two or three word uh, sort of short, super short phrase that captures the spirit of the year that you can live into. And so that's a little bit more of an energetic thing.
So
And
the year of, and then 1, 2, 3 words.
yes. And so, for example, one theme that was really valuable for me in the past was the theme of effortless manifestation. And that theme came about when it just felt like everything was like so much work and so much struggle and so much
Right.
efforting and forcing and so forth. And I just had this like deep desire from within for things to be a lot easier. And
I like
so it was amazing that theme, just holding that theme of effortless manifestation that year, just so many things just seemingly fell into my lap effortlessly. And I realized that actually was happening a lot even before. I just wasn't aware of it. And it was more about just allowing it and receiving it.
That's a great theme now. I mean, I think I might just adopt that for myself. As soon as you said it, I thought, wow, that would be awesome for everything to be so effortless and easy. Yeah, I
I
like that. Maybe other people who are listening can resonate with that idea as well.
I highly recommend trying that out. And the nice thing about a theme like that is you don't have to let go of it when the year's over, right? So I feel
Sure.
like that sort of theme, that energetic of
Yeah.
effortless manifestation has stayed with me. And so for this year, for 2020, my theme is energized. And it's partly in response to a year and a half ago, I had some pretty severe adrenal fatigue. And I was feeling anything but energized. So it was a lot of just laying on the couch, just feeling no energy, feeling not productive, feeling like I didn't have the energy to do the things I really wanted to do in life. And it's taken a long time, to slowly come back from that. And so I feel like I'm in a place now where maybe 70% back to where I want to be. And where I'm really wanting to be is sort of just naturally or energetic and vibrant and having all the energy I want to be able to do and be all the things I want. And so I'm, when I was doing this sort of meditation and contemplating 2020, what came up for me is there are some specific practices I can put into life or into my life to have this energy and not just hope that I'll be energized. And
Right.
so part of my vision for 2020 includes very specific practices that are the foundation for having that energy that I want to have.
Oh, that's great. I mean, and not only that, but as you were speaking, I'm realizing, well, if you were energized, then effortless manifestation would just happen. So they seem to go
Absolutely.
together.
Yes, it's so clear to me, especially when I didn't have the energy, when I was just so fatigued every day that yeah, without that energy, there's just not like the fuel source to even simple things like just being present to another human being was and just enjoying someone's company was often difficult when I was feeling so fatigued,
Right.
especially when it came to just sharing myself. Sometimes I just want to listen and not say anything because I was so tired.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I totally resonate with you, man. I hope that you're getting better. I mean, I don't know what kind of medical issue it was, but I'm really sending my heart love to you, brother. Just want to make sure you heal and do well.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say a lot of it came from just really way overworking in the business and being overly stressed, just working overly long hours, taking on too much. So, fairly self-imposed as entrepreneurs can do.
That's right.
And, basically there were signals and warning signs from the body before it got to full on fatigue. And, when you're not listening to your body, it'll gradually escalate the conditions or the messages until you hear them. And
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it wasn't until there was just full on debilitating fatigue where, I got to sit with like what's at the root of this fatigue, and I was
Right.
getting a clear message, right? You're working too much, you're stressing too much, you're doing things that aren't bringing you joy, you're focusing on things that don't really matter to you at the deepest level, right? So I had to get into that space to really hear some things that I wasn't hearing before. So
Well, and you just kind of alluded to something that you didn't say outright, but that is you were seeing the symptoms of something based on what you were doing. But what you didn't say was you were doing all this stuff probably because of some unconscious beliefs that you were holding on to. And so this brings us to our next point, which is really about uncovering the roadblocks and the obstacles that might keep us from having our vision. Is that
yeah, before we get into that, I'd love to just complete a thought from earlier. So at the beginning of the year, I like to start with the why goals,
okay?
right, and then move into the smart goals. And so for me, a big why for this year is having the energy, just because it intrinsically feels good, and then I get to do the things I want to do and be the way I want to be with people. And so once I was clear, this is one particular why, which is the theme of energize. Then there was, for me at least, there were some pretty clear goals that would enable me to have the energy that I want. But I was starting with a why picture, right? So another big why for me, David, you may not be aware of this, but a really big why for me after having done a lot of the healing work that I've gone through, and then, over the last 5 years, I've been taking uh, uh, all sorts of master practitioner trainings to be, a practitioner in the healing arts myself. Uh, what I've seen is when I shifted myself from being someone who was an avid learner to someone who was an avid healer of my own inner stuff and demons and hurt places and so forth, I found that I would just felt a lot happier and lighter and more free inside.
Yeah,
And so one of my big whys behind my vision for 2020 is I want to bring healing tools mainstream, right? So in the same way that yoga has become mainstream and meditation and mindfulness has become mainstream, I want to be part of a movement to bring powerful healing tools mainstream. And so that's my vision, for the next 10 years is for it to be the most normal thing for someone to say, hey, I went to yoga class yesterday, and then today I, did some healing on myself, and I'm, feeling a lot lighter.
yeah, that's great. And as you say that, you talked about 10 years down the road. Well, to me, this idea of long term, uh, I don't think of it as a goal, but more of as a mission. I years ago, well, not that many years ago, actually, probably 2010, somewhere in that time frame. Well, 2003 was when I started doing this whole idea of mission work. But by 2010, I was able to get my mission statement down to 11 words, which are like a guiding principle for my entire life now. And the thing is, it's really a vision of the kind of world I want to live in, coupled with some actions that I want to keep bringing forth. every day. Now, this is not the same as a goal. It's basically my vision of the ideal world. And so every goal that I subsequently create, I try to bring it in alignment with that vision. So you talked about SMART goals. Well, I use a slightly different acronym. I call it PD SMART. And that's right out of my book. I talked about purpose driven SMART goals. So it's once you have a clear mission or purpose in your life, then setting SMART goals, you can always now double check, is this goal in alignment with my purpose? If it isn't, can I bring it into alignment with my purpose? If I can't, can I throw the goal away and find something else that's more in alignment? Or if I've already committed to this goal, can I renegotiate it? Those are the options that are available. And so I'm glad you mentioned about the long-term thing because, yeah, it's great to have a vision for the year. And come December 31st, we're going to be doing this process all over again, but it would sure be nice if you had the mission, the focus of your grand vision for life to guide you in the following year.
Yes, love it. Yes, exactly. So, my 10 to 30-year vision is just healing tools available to everyone. And so with that, my specific goal or intention for 2020 is this is going to be the year I'm going to start my own school of healing arts. And so in the second half of the year, I want to work with 10 people who want to learn the healing tools that I've been using for myself and with my clients. And actually, a lot of my clients have been asking me, like, how do you do what you do? And so this is the year I want to teach my first cohort, my first group of 10 people, how to have powerful healing tools they can either use for themselves, they can use for clients or other people in their lives. And there's more I can share about the vision, but it's this vision of healing tools available to everyone. And for that to be as normal as going to a yoga class is inspiring me to, okay, let's start teaching tools to people this year.
Brilliant. Yeah, great idea.
And so my encouragement for those who are listening right now is, what's the thing that matters the most to you in 2020, right? Maybe it's health, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's related to your business or your career or your work, right? These are the traditional areas, of course. There's our personal or spiritual development, right? There's other areas of life, wealth creation. But in these traditional areas, in this year, what matters the most? And then related to that, David, one more. So there's the what matters the most. There's a theme for the year. That's another fun thing to play with. And another thing I wanted to add for people for their bucket of tools for thinking about their vision for 2020 is I like to call it having a game changer goal. Okay. And so there's lots of goals or intentions you can set for 2020, but what's the thing that's going to be the game changer for the year? And so for me, the game changer is being energized, right? And you kind of alluded to it yourself, which is when there's that energy, then I can do anything, right? I can throw myself into my mission work. I can throw myself into a love relationship. I can throw myself into going to the gym and, rocking it out and just having like a lot of amazing fitness and vibrancy, right? So for me, the game changer is being energized and having that energy, right? So that's why of all the goals and all the things I'm focusing on this year, it's the things I'm doing to have that energy, which are in the game changer box for me. So those are going to be central, to my set of goals and intentions for 2020.
I noticed when you said that word game changer, I had a bit of a reaction internally, and I'm not sure what that is exactly. We could do some processing on that, but I don't need to. I think really what it is for me is I don't really understand what it means to be a game changer. I mean, you describe your energizing as a game changer for you. And as you describe that, I understand now from your perspective what that means to you. So obviously the idea of game changing is something that we all have to decide for ourselves. We have to say, well, what is the game I'm playing and what is it that is going to change the game and up my game, so to speak. I think that's really what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yes, and it's the game of life, it's the game of business, right? So, you can reflect on, and anyone listening to this can reflect on, what could you put your energy into this year that would make the biggest difference in your life? another way to think about it is, what is it that you've maybe been wanting in your life for years, right? That's been a background intention or a vision that for whatever reason hasn't manifested, and you can set a game changer goal or intention for this year that can be a powerful catalyst for you to have something maybe you've been wanting for a long time but haven't been able to have.
Right. Yeah, that's really beautiful.
So, like for you, David, if you think about your life, your world, is there something maybe that's been a intention or a dream or a desire of yours that you've held for years, and it hasn't happened yet, but you could have a game changer, you know, a game changer focus for this year that could be a catalyst for that happening.
Well, as I was sharing with you before we started the recording, um, one of my challenges over the last, I would say, well, since 2006, is to, well, let me just give a little bit of backstory here so you understand what I'm talking about. So I've been married twice, and both marriages ended in divorce. And so I was kind of reluctant to enter into another marriage type relationship because I didn't want to go through the process of another divorce. So I've got this story going on in my head that if I get married again, I'm just going to get divorced again and then I'm going to be lonely again. So I've protected myself, I think, by not really entering into a deep relationship. However, lately, in the last couple of years, I've noticed a longing for that kind of partnership, a deep longing for a partnership with somebody who, could support me in my business and be a loving relationship partner as well. So really what I'm looking for is a spiritual partnership that's much deeper and much more enlightened, if you like, than all the past relationships I've ever had. So that's kind of what I've been dreaming about. And as we talked about, what I've noticed is I've been kind of getting in my own way around it because I have been focusing so much time and energy on my business, trying to bring this message out, trying to get people like you into my circle, and even to help you, for example, to bring healing into the world because I think it's an important goal, and I want to be a part of that too. So part of me says, man, if I get into a relationship, I'm going to have to give up some of the time and energy that I'm focusing on my business. And is the business going to suffer as a result? So I have some fear about that. So that's really, I think, the truth of my situation right now. And there we go. Is that vulnerable enough for you?
Wow, thank you, David. No, that's first of all, just that's huge to just open up this way on your own show and share a deep longing. And it kind of relates to what you were about to bring up a few minutes ago. So I'll segue into that, which is the
Woohoo!
blocks. Yeah, the blocks, right? So we can journal and meditate on and generate for ourselves a really powerful vision and some goals for the year that we want to live into. And then there's sometimes or oftentimes, if we're stretching or challenging ourselves, there's the blocks or the resistance or the parts of us that aren't really sure if we really want to accomplish that goal. And if I may, David, I heard a little bit of that in your language, and you're obviously aware of it as well, which is that a bit of a inner resistance or fear that you don't want a relationship to turn out to be in another sort of painful divorce situation. Like the pain of that almost makes it not worth getting into another relationship.
Oh yeah, yeah, perfect. Yep, that's
Yeah,
definitely shadow stuff there for sure.
yeah, and obviously you're well aware of that, and so that's a perfect example of we have this longing or a desire. You have a longing desire for a spiritual partner and someone who's supporting you in your business, and I love that vision. And your face just got so soft as you were sharing that. I could tell it's like really meaningful for you. And so on the one hand, there's that, and on the other hand, there's a part of you that kind of doesn't want that because it could turn out to be really painful. And I think that's true for a lot of people where you're there's an ambition or a goal or something you really, really want. And then there's a part of you that's afraid of being hurt in some way if you
Yeah.
move towards it, right?
Mhm.
For a lot of entrepreneurs, for example, a lot of the people I've worked with over the last 10 years, oftentimes, yes, I want to be someone who's visible, who's helping people, who's spreading a message. I was just talking with someone yesterday, but there's another side of her that's afraid of being seen and potentially, if she's visible, she might be up for criticism or some sort of
Yeah.
way she might be hurt by other people, and she knows it's irrational. If she's in a speaking engagement, sharing a message of healing or some loving message, the odds of something bad happening at a workshop are practically slim and none. But there's like this mortal fear of something happening, and
Yeah.
so I think there's two sides of the coin for anyone who's looking at their goals, especially if you're looking at what really matters for 2020. What is it you're really longing for and you haven't been able to achieve? There's the other side of, well, what is in the way internally of that happening? Because usually there's not any outside forces. There's not someone standing outside the door, literally showing up to try to stop you from moving towards your goal, right? It's all internally generated. And so I think it's as important when you're looking at your goals or your vision for 2020, when you're getting to that clarity, to also really be as clear on, well, what, have you been working towards that for a while, and is there something stopping you from within? And then getting just as clear on the blocks or what's stopping you within as you are on the goals or the vision that you're holding.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I think I also shared with you before we started that I have been in email communication with a woman that I met through a dating site, and it's been really great having these communications. And the last letter I got from her, she asked me this question. She said, "Describe your ideal weekend." And I thought, oh my God, I can't think of what my ideal weekend looks like. It was, I can't remember the last time I had an ideal weekend just with a woman, you know? So she really struck a chord in my heart. And I still haven't responded yet because I need to, figure out what I want to say to her that will be coming from my heart and be truthful. And also let her know I can't remember the last time I had an ideal weekend, but I think this is what I would want if I was going to have another ideal weekend. It was just amazing to me. I mean, this woman already is asking the right question.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and then it's holding up a mirror for what's inside of you in relationship to that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, can I ask you? So, like, just thinking about like this woman's, putting out an invitation for you to think about your ideal weekend, and maybe in the future, if things go well, to actually spend that ideal weekend with her potentially. And so, how does it feel right now to just think about spending an ideal weekend with an amazing woman?
Yeah, that feels really good, actually. It feels, there's something in there that says, yeah, give me that. Give me that. That's what I want. My heart definitely wants to be open and vulnerable, and I want to be able to share everything with a deep spiritual partner. And the sex, that's not even really the issue. Sex is great, but it's not my motivating thing at all. I'm way past that.
Yeah. So would you be willing?
Connection, the open-heartedness, the authenticity, the be able to share withholds and appreciations and all the things, fears and everything else. That's really what I want more than anything else.
Wow. So powerful, David. Yes, I just really felt your heart open as you were sharing that. Would you be willing to describe a few more elements of the ideal weekend with an amazing woman?
Oh God. To be honest with you, I can't think of anything specific that we'd be doing other than that open-hearted sharing stuff. How we did that, whether we're sitting across from each other in a coffee shop or whether we, take a walk on the beach somewhere or go skinny dipping somewhere for all I know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me. The activity is not as important as the intention that we put behind it.
Love it. Just for fun, see if you can add a picture or a visual to it.
Oh, God, you're really putting the screws to me here, Patrick. Who's running this show anyway?
Yeah. Hey, when you invited me to your show, you should have known.
Yeah.
I can't switch it off.
Some more details. Well,
just if you like, close your eyes and just see what picture comes to mind. Where might you be as this is happening?
Well, I love to be in the mountains, and I also love to be on the beach. So I'm thinking maybe someplace like Hawaii, the Napali coast has both right close to each other. Maybe doing some, uh,
So, so
you know,
get really specific. So like so that beach, see yourself perhaps you're walking on the beach or you're sitting in a
yeah,
lounge
I
chair
was
on the
just
beach.
going there.
Yeah.
I can see, I can see being on the Napali coast actually. Of I don't know if you've ever been there, but I've done some kayaking there, and I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. So I
Is
imagine
that
like being in a two-seater kayak, uh, watching the tortoises in the water, and then maybe taking some detours to the shore where they've got these big, beautiful caves, and some of them opening up into these volcanoes in the sky. That would be an amazing opportunity.
all right? I see you're just lighting up here, David.
Yeah, look at that, exploding with light.
Yeah, so what I was doing there, David, and for everyone who's listening is, I find that when you're starting to enter into like a vision, so you're already having a vision for an ideal weekend with an amazing woman here, and I find it helps to bring uh, the visual and the auditory and the kinesthetic into it as well,
Yeah,
right? So what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? Both what are you feeling inside in terms of your emotions and sensations, but also what are you feeling on your skin? If we were to go further with this, I'd have you actually feel the water, the warm water of
yeah.
Hawaii,
Hmm.
splashing on you and so forth, right?
I,
Uh, what kind of expression does she have on her face as you're doing this, right? And I find that when you're actually establishing your own internal representations, right? The visual, the auditory, and the kinesthetic for an experience you want to have. It's like setting a tractor beam for that experience actually coming into your life.
well, I like that, a tractor beam. So we're
Yeah,
gonna do the Star Wars thing now.
yeah. Because there's a gigantic difference between saying to the universe, I'd like to spend the ideal weekend, with a love, and then actually having the visual and the auditory and the kinesthetic components and actually living it. Now when you're doing that, we're already seeing that you are already vibrating with the energy of the ideal weekend with that lovely woman, right? And
Hmm.
now, since you're vibrating with it, now you can attract that, right? It's like basic sort of law of attraction 101, right? You're vibrating with that frequency, right? And there's going to be a woman somewhere there who encounters you and says, "Oh, I like this man's energy. Maybe I want to spend an ideal weekend with him."
That's great.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. So we just had a little experiential moment here of a clear vision for 2020, right? So pick something that would be a game changer to experience in 2020, something you have a deep longing for, something there's a big why for it, and then actually go through the experience of creating the visual, right? What would it look in your mind's eye? What would it look like, right? Play out a little movie of it actually existence. Then what are you hearing? What sounds are you hearing around you? Right? In your vision, you might have been hearing the splash of waves, right? Or the paddles in the water, right? What are you feeling? Both what are you feeling inside? What are the emotions, right? Maybe it's joy, love, connection. What sensations, right? Maybe it's warm, fuzzy. And then also, what are you feeling on your skin, right? If you're walking on the beach, you might be feeling the sand, right? If you're sitting across from someone and you're enjoying tea together, it might be like the beautiful taste of chamomile or hibiscus tea. I'm a tea drinker, right? So I can immediately have some positive feelings inside from just taking a sip of warm tea. Okay. And just add like the full color of the experience for what it is that you want to experience in 2020. Pick a moment, a vignette. What would it look like when you actually have what you want? Whether it's a relationship, whether it's in health, whether it's in business, right? For a lot of business clients I work with, I have them envision you're on a stage, you're in that room with 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, and you're sharing your message and you're seeing people in the audience, they're smiling, right? they're getting it, they're moved by what you're sharing, right? You're hearing the silence as people are really absorbing it, or you're hearing the applause, but make it real, make it vivid, right? Because when you get to experience it now for the first time, then you get to experience it again. And maybe it's a smaller version that you get to experience for the first time, right? Maybe it's a beautiful phone call or a video chat or a tea date, with the love of your life, or maybe it's the first little workshop you're experiencing with the people you want to be working with. And then you get to build and have more and more and more of it until at the end of the year, you're really living into that vision.
Yeah, it's great. It's pretty awesome, dude. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, and I think that having a vision for the year really is a more powerful thing if you can have it aligned with your overall purpose for being, your overall soul's purpose, your mission in life. Now, I don't know about you, but like I said, I do have a personal mission, a mission statement. And it's real simple. It goes like this: I create universal harmony by modeling, fostering, and facilitating authentic magnificence. That is my personal mission statement. Now, it's not a goal because it's intended for me to live by that every single day. But every goal I create, I ask myself the question, is this goal in alignment with that mission? Is this goal going to help me to create universal harmony in the world? Is it going to help me to model, foster, and facilitate authentic magnificence? If it's not, then I can drop it or shift it or move it or renegotiate it, whatever the case may be. So I encourage people, it's not a trivial thing to come up with a life mission. That takes some work. And as I said, I describe this in some detail in my book, and I know you've had a chance to take a look at this. But I really, really, really encourage people to read that section and understand that, your mission, your purpose comes from here. It comes from who you are. It's not something that can be given to you from somewhere outside. I mean, someone might hand you something and it might turn out to be a mission, but only if it resonates with the truth of who you are. And then you may turn it around and say, no, that's not quite right. I have to adjust it, whatever. But that's a very, very important point. So I just wanted to, in case I haven't said it enough.
Yes, so important, David. And I loved hearing yours, right? Just when you were sharing yours, it was just like so much resonance. I was just loving hear you say that. I was like, I want to hear you say yours like 5 more times because there's such like fantastic energy to that. And I, want to say a plug.
This is a good point because so that's my personal mission for life.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different mission for my business, but it still involves two components: the vision that I have for the world, and the actions that I take within my business in order to create that vision, make it come true, or to help it come true. Now, you see, the whole idea of one of these statements is that it's supposed to be bigger than we are. I mean, can you imagine universal harmony? Everybody imagines it, but how many? Sorry, Siri is thinking I was talking to
her. Siri said, "I want harmony too."
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, my point is, universal harmony is just a grand ideal. It's not something I expect to see within my lifetime, but it's something I do choose to try and help create over the course of my life. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the vision should be much, much bigger. And if it is, so much the better because it helps to inspire and motivate us.
Yes, I love everything you're saying here, David. And I want to put in a plug for your book. I really enjoyed reading your book, and just there's so much juicy David juice in the book. So
no one's ever accused me of that before. I like that. David juice. Woo!
No, it's not a boring book. It's very from the heart with a lot of just your personal energy and personal touches. So I enjoyed that aspect of the book. Yeah, purpose I think is just such a profound topic. I mean, we could do a whole show just on the topic of purpose.
Yep.
I help a lot of clients discover their purpose as well. And I think that the key is just like when you're tapping into a deeper place to get a sense of your vision and what your whys are for 2020, the same is true with purpose. It's worthwhile to go, if you don't have a sense of your purpose or your mission, to go off and have some solitary time and
Yeah.
connect with a deeper part of you in the same way we were talking about earlier, and take the time and space to really listen and just give it a lot of space. And if it feels like, you can write at the top of your piece of paper, what's my higher purpose for being in this world? What's my greater mission? And just like you said, David, lots of stuff will come up which isn't that. Write it down or just let it come through, and then be patient and wait for something that's more connected to that deeper sense of purpose, mission to come up. I have a guided meditation that I take people I work with through to help them get into the space where they're accessing their higher self and their deeper wisdom. And that's
Yeah.
the place to connect with for that purpose information and that mission information to come through.
Right. So I guess the way we'd like to wrap this up, Patrick, is to talk a little bit about helping people to take full advantage of the start of the year as an opportunity for renewal and for getting massively energized about what you want to create in 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, so when you take the time to get clear on your vision for 2020, your whys, your goals, as well as the blocks and the resistance, the things that come up when you think about moving towards something big, there's just a tremendous source of energy there that propels you into taking the steps, and sometimes difficult or challenging actions that need to be taken to move towards your goals. But having that motivating vision is the fuel source, right, for being able to do the things that you need to do. And then, as you were just saying a minute ago, David, when you have a powerful connection to something bigger than you, when you're not doing it just for yourself, but you're doing it for a community or for the world, right? Then that provides even more motivation to go and do the things that might be challenging to be done. Like if you're a business owner, there's challenging things to be done in your business, but you do them with enjoyment because it's serving something bigger that's really motivating you. And so that's the thing I want
And
to.
I think that's really important, actually. You know, most of us, we don't even realize this, I don't think, until we start doing it. When we start making mankind our goal, mankind is the beneficiary of everything that we bring into this world. When we start consciously doing that, everything starts to illuminate in our lives. It's a powerful, powerful thing. So I don't want that to just go by, as a slight nod. I want it to be really out there in front of people.
Yes. So we're ending with this theme of renewal and revitalization. And for me, it's, taking a look at the previous year and saying, what is it that I want to leave behind? What is it that maybe I regret or I wish were different? And, I try to live a life of no regrets, but I think it's useful to look at the past year and say, yeah, I didn't really want to have that, or that was in my life and I want to move past that. Right.
Right.
And that's where there's the opportunity for renewal to consciously say, I'm going to choose to leave that behind and have something different, and then be clear on what it is that you want to have be different, and also be clear on what are the energetic patterns inside that might be keeping you in the place that you didn't want to have, and doing some work with that as well.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Great point. Thank you so much for that. I agree. Doing some reflection on what's gone in the past. I find the word regret kind of a word that brings me down a little bit. What I prefer to do is look back and say, all right, what did I learn? What is it that I learned about this experience? Yeah, it was maybe uncomfortable, maybe it was a little bit painful, but what did I really get from it? What did I learn from it so that I don't necessarily do that again? I kind of look at it that way. I hope that I can say at the end of my life, I have no regrets, because I honestly do believe that everything I do, moment by moment, is an expression of who I am in that moment. And therefore, it is a perfectly acceptable thing. even if I do something really stupid, you know? So I hope that we can all begin to accept ourselves in that way. And that's one of the things, one of the goals that I have as part of this whole healing modality, self-acceptance.
Yes, I love this, and I think there's the combination, right? So there's the what did I learn from the thing that maybe wasn't so good in life, but there's also the taking the time to recognize, looking at the past year or past years, what was something to be willing to be with. There were some things that didn't really work for me, and not sweep those under the rug, because I think something
Yeah,
what can
exactly.
happen is we can be in a place of tolerating, what's not acceptable for us and living with it versus recognizing this is actually causing me more pain or suffering or discomfort than I really want to have. So first it's being willing to recognize that. And then
Yeah,
yes,
good point.
going to, what do I learn from it and how do I want things to be different?
Yeah, no, that's great,
And
Patrick.
and
Thank
it,
you.
and it could take some courage to look at our lives in that really sort of really assess that, yeah, there's some things I've been putting up with and maybe I've been the cause of that really aren't serving me, and being willing to let that go and move on to something else and learn the
Right.
lessons.
Yeah. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground, and the time has just flown by. I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to give you one more opportunity to, if you have a final word that you'd like to say before I close it out.
Uh, yes, this is your opportunity to choose consciously, to choose what it is you want to be creating this year, right? To live into your biggest whys. And it's also your opportunity to consciously look at, are there ways you're holding yourself back from that? Are there things you've been doing in the last year or years to be holding yourself back? And to take that on, to take on shifting what's in going on inside, to look under the rocks that are there. It's life changing to do that sort of work, both of
Yeah,
them. The yin and the yang, the light and the dark. Look at both. It's
that's
all
beautiful.
part of a whole.
Uh, well, thank you so much for being here, Patrick. It's just been a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And I know that there's been tons of great stuff shared here. I hope that people will get benefit out of it, even when they watch the record.
Yes, and thank you, David, for having me here. And I'm feeling energized from this conversation. So, my vision for 2020 is like coming true right here on this conversation. And just thank you for being a gracious and just intriguing host. Really enjoyed every minute of this.
You're welcome, and my pleasure. All right, and thank you all for joining us today. I'm so glad that you were able to be here for the live presentation. I just want to remind you that you can catch recordings of this and every other show that I've ever done on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. And I also want to remind you just to remember the life mastery mantra and bring it into your consciousness at least once a day. It goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your journey. And I will see you next time right here on Life Mastery TV. Bye bye now.